Hello, my name is Barry Gorell. I'm going to do a demonstration today on using the channel mixer tool in Photoshop to repair channels that are clipped either at the white point or black point end, usually due to over or under exposure. Sometimes, in fact, oftentimes with a cast that's part of the problem. So let's just jump right in here. This image here, I wanted to just kind of quickly review what's going on with it in the histograms. The red histogram looks really nice. No clipping, no sign of clipping at either the black point side or the white point side up here. Green channel, no clipping at the white point, but we're starting to see some clipping down here in the green. And then moving on down to the blue channel here, there's quite a bit of clipping. As you can see, a lot of pixels are up against this left side, which is the black point, and very little in the white. The lightest tones don't start until in the mid-tone region, really. And that accounts for the heavy yellow cast that we see here, in combination with a healthy red channel combines with that amount of red that you see prominent out here on the histogram overlay. That'll often is a sign of a heavy cast in the red area, especially in the lighter and mid-tone areas. So we're going to try to fix this. We're going to jump right in here to the channel mixer tool. We'll bring it up, and the first channel that's in the list here is red, and it's already fine. We don't need to do anything with it. So we'll move on down here to the green channel. And what I want to do with the green channel is to transfer some of the luminance information from the red channel down here into the green channel. Now the shapes of the channels are a little bit different, so when I do this, this peak here will get a little bit higher. It'll reflect this a little bit more, but hopefully also we'll gain this nice healthy black point side down in this area a little bit more. So to get started with that, I'm going to try, typically when I do these information transfers from channel to channel, you definitely want to keep it under the 30 or 40% range. Otherwise, you start getting into some color issues that you may not be able to have good control of later on towards the end of the editing process. But I'm going to start in the middle of the range here with 15%. Coming out of the red channel and moving to the green channel, and you'll notice that that's bumped the green channel luminance up to 115, which has kind of given us a green cast. We don't want that. So we're going to reduce the green channel information by the corresponding 15%, bring it down to 85, and that will restore the overall luminance of that channel to 100. And if you notice here, our green channel has now kind of got a nice slope coming down and just ends nicely there at the left corner, so little or no clipping there, and that's really all we need to accomplish. The more you try to do, if you slide this histogram further up and make it more like this one, you're doing more than you really need to. The rest we can take care of very nicely with curve adjustments. So let's move on down now to the blue channel, and that's the real problem channel, the problem child here. So what we're going to do is take the black area. The black information, most of the fix for that is going to come from the red channel. But if we try to take too much from the red channel, you'll notice that the shape of this red channel is quite different than the blue channel. And if we take too much information from the red, then we're going to wind up with a blue channel that is overly exaggerated. And even though there's room for that in here because of the yellow cast, I don't want to do too much. So this time, instead of taking 15 from the red, I'm just going to take 10. And then the rest of it, I'm going to take from the green channel. And I want you to notice as I enter these numbers, what happens to the left side of our thing down here. So as we have brought this down, now we've got an overly blue look, just like I anticipated, because the fact that the luminance now for this channel is too high. It's 130 instead it should be 100. So I've added 30 levels of units, 30% of luminance information from these other two channels. So I'm going to have to reduce the blue channel by a corresponding amount, taking it down to 70. And when I do that, then we'll find that we have a black point that is much better controlled here in the blue channel. We've got a nice black point in the green channel, and easily correctable. Plenty of room here in the red channel. Now we've got a look here that hasn't changed dramatically. I'll turn this off and on, and you'll see that there's a real subtle difference in the amount of correction that's gone on, but we have moved significantly towards a little bit more neutral image with this channel mixer thing. So now we can move along to the normal black and white point corrections, and we'll do that as we've done in a previous video. And we're going to go channel by channel and do that. The red channel, first thing we want to do is make sure that the show clipping for black and white points is on. The check mark's there, so it is. And so that point is all taken care of. And now I want to just slide in here on the red black point slider until I start to get a little bit of black coming in here. You'll see it in the lower right, and they're coming in as black squares. That's because of JPEG artifacting. This image, we're using it courtesy of Pat Lester McKeon from a photo group that I'm in. And I noted that this was a great image to demonstrate this with, and Pat gave us her permission to do so. So that's we thank Pat for doing that. And so the JPEG artifacts coming in here is not going to affect us too much. But in a normal photograph from your camera, you wouldn't have those square artifacts. You'd have the more salt and peppery pixel look there. But for our purposes, it'll still work fine. Now I want to call attention to something over here on this image that is, you'll see these little white spots along here. These shells are wet and shiny, and the light that's shining on them, when it reflects off of these bumps that are on the and make up the texture of the shell, they're forming a reflection that's reflecting from the light source directly back into the camera. That's what's called a specular highlight. It's the same as if the sun was shining on a chrome bumper on a car, or a headlight that's shining directly in your eyes. Anything that is the light source is being striking directly into your eye, it's going to have no detail in it relative to the rest of the scene because of its relative brightness. So we're going to do a little more aggressive white point clipping when we do this, so that we make sure we include most all of these white specks, so that in the final print or reproduction, these will be pure white. So when we slide our white slider in, the screen will turn black, and then as we come in, you'll see right away that these red speckles are showing up that correspond to the highlight areas in the image. So we're going to come in about that far and have a nice healthy white point clip there. We're going to go do the same in the green channel. We're going to have to be more aggressive because you'll notice that this histogram is pulled back further from the right side. But let's take a look at our black. The channel mixer repair has done a great job. There is no black in this channel. So we don't have to move very far, just 2 or 3 points to pick up our black. And then we're going to do likewise on the other end with the white point coming in. And we're going to come in until we get the green coming in as a speckle on the highlights, just like we had in the red channel. And when I let go here, we'll see what's going on. Now, the color balance of this is going to change throughout this process, so we don't worry about the color too much until we get all 3 channels done. Let's take a look at our blue channel. Really nice. There's no clipping there at all until we move into about the 1 or 2 range, and then that equals about what we had in the red channel and the green channel. So we've got a perfectly neutral black point there, which is ideal. And then we've got even further to slide here to pick up our white point clip, which will be a little bit hard to see because it's dark blue against the black field. It's a little bit hard to see, but I think it becomes apparent once we get down in here to about the 188, 190 range, something in that range. When I let go here, the computer's a little slow, it comes back. And now we've got a pretty neutralized image over what we had before. I'll turn this correction channel off and on. We can relabel this curve. I'm just going to call it black plus white point adjustment, just so we know, coming back in, we know what this curve is all about. But there's a issue here that I want to make that's kind of a value judgment here at this point. Technically, we've done a lot of good things. We've got a nice neutral white point, a neutral black point, and all that. But we've lost some of the character of this image that we had originally. Even though it had a strong red cast, we probably want to keep a little bit of that feel, simply because these shells typically, at least in my experience, when they come out of you see them at the ocean and whatnot, they're rarely a white like that. They're usually kind of a little bit of a cream color, and so we need to try to account for that if we can. So I'm going to use this color sampler tool here, and I'm going to come over and set a point right in kind of a gray neutral area of this shell, and go up here to our window and get the information window to come up, and it will show us what this what's going on here. And you'll notice that the red is a little bit higher number than the cyan, the green and the blue. And so that's the reason for it is a slightly reddish look, but there's still way too much blue in here. We want this blue number to be down quite a bit from what it is, and we may want even the red to be just a slightly more red than it is. So again, we'll go back to our curve adjustment layer here. We'll go up here to the red. We'll click on our value selection tool. We'll come over here to this point, and we're going to click in the red channel, and we're going to just drive this up until we get this number up to about 220. And that'll put like a little bit of a red look into this image. And then what we want to do is reduce this blue so that it's about 10 points below the green. And that will introduce a nice yellowy feel to it. So we'll go here to our blue channel. Again, this is activated. We'll just come over here and click on our control point. And using my down arrow, I'm just going to force this blue level down. And as we go down, it's going to come down until we get down to about 203 or so. It's still going down because I hit the thing too many times. But now at 203, we're about 10 points below the green, and you can see that there's a nice kind of a cream colored here on this shell, which is probably a bit more realistic. The last step in this process is, and I want to point out, the white points that we've moved to get them neutralized, we had to move the red over to this point from over here. It was the least amount of move because we had already had strong red. The green we had to move a little bit more in order to get it to extend out here to make a white point. And then the blue we had to move even more to get it to extend out to make a white point over here. Then we've bent those curves to kind of reintroduce the coloring that we wanted to get to in the final step. But now we're back in the RGB composite channel, and we want to introduce just a touch more contrast. This looks really pretty good, but there's a lot of texture detail in this shell, especially in this one and in this one over here, that we'd kind of like to accentuate a little bit if we can. So again, I've got the value selector tool here. I'm going to come back over here to my white point. I'm going to click, and I'll see that it's got a value of 112, and we'd like to get that up higher, maybe up to maybe in the 120 range or so. So I'm going to keep moving up here until I get this up to, well, let's see, 122, 23, 24. It's still going. I've hit it too much, so let me get it coming back down here. If we go to 222, that's probably pretty good. I don't want to go too much. 224 is about as much as I would want to do. Now, what I want to do is also come down here into an area where there is less detail, especially in an area like here where there's very little separation between this bump area. So I'm going to go in this darker area in the valley between these two bumps. I'm going to click there, and I'm going to use my down arrow key to reduce the value in that area and make it even darker than it is. And that will cause more separation between the highlighted area and the slight shadow area of this, and will help to bring out the detail a little bit more in this image. And you'll notice that in bringing this down, it's still going down. Bring it back up to where we want it here. All right. So we've introduced an increase in the slope of the curve between these 2 points, and that is really what we wanted to do. If the original ley line is this little fine gray line here, that's the original gamma slope of this photograph. But we've increased the steepness of this slope between these 2 points, this highlight point here and this shadow point down in here. And in doing that, we've separated the tones between here and here a little bit more, which brings out the detail in that area a little bit more than it would otherwise. So, having done all that, I think we're in pretty good shape. The last thing that we might want to do here, let's turn this off and on to see what we've come from to where we've gotten to. And it's a pretty nice improvement, I think. It's got a lot more pop and color and saturation to it. We've gotten rid of most of that color cast. The only thing is that in the process of doing what we've done, we've also kind of reduced the color saturation that we had here. With this thing off, these reds down in here were really nice and rich. And in doing this, we've kind of taken a little bit of that out of the way. We can quickly fix that by going to the Hue-Saturation, bringing that up, the control panel up here, and we're going to work on generally the red tones. It'll select this area here, but it activates these arrows, and then we can choose the color, and this area over here will jump when I select the area of red that we really want to work on. You see it moves a little bit to the right, so it's a little bit more of an orangey red. We can pick up this plus tool and pick up a few other areas just to be sure that we've got all of the red tones that we think we want to increase the saturation on. Once we've got those selected, it's just a matter of going to the saturation slider here. Maximum range on this for practical use is really, you can see here I'm at 38, and you can see how kind of overblown it is, so we don't want to get up into that area normally unless you're going for some kind of really intense color effect. So I'm going to back off here, get it back down to around 19 or 20 or so, and that will restore our nice red look, and then we'll have pretty much a nice finished image. Just to wrap up real quickly, I can go and add some sharpening here. If I close up this adjustment tool, I can add a duplicate layer here, and we can name it. I'm going to do an unsharp mask on this area, and so I indicate that by just putting a USM in here. And then the sharpening that I typically do, this is a 72 dpi image. So under the filter, there's a sharpen menu here. There's a number of them: sharpen edges, sharpen more. Smart Sharpen is one that was introduced a few years ago in Photoshop that a lot of people like to use. I've always used the Unsharp Mask. I'm real familiar with how it works and how it does what it does, so I feel more comfortable using it. The amount of sharpening that I typically do ranges anywhere from a low of about 80 to as high as 240, depending upon the image. But 160 to 140 is a range that I use very frequently. For a 72 dpi image, the radius that I choose after lots of testing over the years is either 0.3 or 0.4. 0.3 is a little bit milder looking. 0.4 gives you just a little bit more edge, and because of all of the little detail in here, I want to capture a little bit more edgy look here. And then the threshold, a lot of people are mystified by that, what that means. If we slide this slider all the way up and get this number up to 255, it negates what's here. In other words, it's saying that do not perform any sharpening at all on pixels that have that are closer than 255 levels in value. Well, there is no such thing because there's only 256 levels in a gray 8-bit scale. So once you go to 255 here, you've excluded all the pixels from being sharpened. So the lower the number, the more sharpening you're going to get. Typically, the lowest number that I frequently will use is something in the 8 to 12 range. If I'm going for just a little bit of sharpening, I'll take it down to 4 to 6. And if I want to get my maximum sharpening, I'll take it all the way down to 2. I don't go below 2 because if you go all the way to 0, you'll wind up with a very kind of toothy, edgy looking image that is not really that attractive. It looks kind of artificial looking. So that wraps up what we're going to do. I think that concludes our lesson for today, and I think you'll agree that there's a nice improvement in this image, and I thank you.